So, KD, what happened to you the other night that you were all quiet? The other night when I was on the show.
My kids were making so much noise in the background.
Oh, gotcha.
They were doing Hamilton, he said.
I got a 14-year-old that's in love with Hamilton, so she sings it every day.
Well, you want to encourage that for sure. That's awesome.
No, I was gonna say you should record your kids doing their version of Hamilton. That'll be dope.
Oh yeah.
That'll go viral. That might go viral.
Yeah, I think I will do that.
You imagine if you eventually got a kids edition on Broadway or something?
Yeah. That's big time.
Yeah, that's what my 14-year-old wants to do. She wants to do Broadway. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. It's positive. It's good for her.
She's very talented in that area.
Oh, that's great, man. That's good for dad too. It's like a good retirement. The kid can be famous, and you could be like at the pool.
Right.
It's like you see Denzel's son is doing his thing, but Denzel's kind of like funny. Like he doesn't. I don't know if he's very hard on his son. Like I saw in an interview, they were asking him how his son was doing. He's like, oh well, he's got a ways to go, which is fine. Like. Fine saying he's got a ways to go, but it's just like the energy was kind of like he wasn't beaming like, oh, I'm so proud of my son. It was just like, yeah, he's got a.
You never know the relationship, Flav. You never know the relationship between family.
Yeah.
His son didn't want to have anything to do with his dad as far as his career is concerned.
Well, he didn't want to ride his coattails, right?
Which is respectable. It's respectable for sure.
So he never said who his father was, or did he lie about who his father was, or what did he do? Something like I read something recently, like no one knew.
Well, he changed his last name. He used a different name.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he used a different name.
He wasn't using Washington.
He wasn't using Washington.
Oh, okay.
That's like Stephen King's son. He writes under his own name called Joe Hill.
Joe Hill?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, man. Welcome back.
I've been critical of Joe Hill as of late.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his DC Black line of comic books.
Oh, I haven't read them, so I can't say it.
Yeah, Basket Full of Heads is pretty cool. It's just, my criticism is the other creative teams that he's branded under his line.
Yeah.
I feel like you're Joe Hill, right? Like why, I was reading, I thought the Lolo Woods was okay, but there was another one, Daphne Byrne. And it's just every other horror story that came out of the 80s. And I'm like, you're Joe Hill, you're trying to reintroduce horror comics, into the mainstream. Why aren't you choosing something unique and original to kind of promote and brand? Basket Full of Heads is unique and original.
I agree.
Daphne Byrne is not.
I haven't read that one.
Yeah, it's not. It's literally, I've read it before. You know what I mean? Not in comic book format, but I've read the story before. The basic genesis. Yeah, so I was critical of it. Basket Full of Heads, again, I'll say, is definitely different. It's definitely different, but I don't know how far that line is going to go.
I don't know though, because as a writer, he's really good. As a writer in novels, at least.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't read all of his comic books, so I can't speak too much. I've read Basket Full of Heads, good stuff.
Yeah, Basket Full of Heads is definitely different. It's not my thing.
He didn't write his father's success either, so I'm very appreciative of that. He's his own man.
Doesn't he have two sons that write?
Yeah, he does. He does. The other one, I forget his name, or what he writes under. I don't think he writes under King.
He doesn't. He doesn't.
Yeah, because that's too much. That's almost like cursing yourself. That's too much of a shadow to live in. If you're trying to branch out into writing.
Right. I mean, especially considering you're choosing to write in the same genre that your father's writing in.
Sure. But that's wise too, because you get to absorb all that knowledge your dad has and spit it out for a younger generation. That's really wise, I think, as it was on their parts.
Yeah, but it opens the door for criticism based on comparison.
Absolutely. No. The cost is always high, no matter
Yeah.
what you do in that situation.
Yeah, it's like Anne Rice, like her sister wrote a book about, I guess what you could call werewolves. And while I thought it was an okay book, like no one is talking about Anne Rice's sister.
Right, right. But she has a son who also writes, but he writes in like romance kind of romance drama kind of thing. I don't know. It doesn't have anything to do with vampires or anything like that.
Yeah, I know her son writes.
He's
I
supposedly
thought he
very
was.
good.
I thought he wrote poetry for a while.
He did. Trying to find himself, so not. I've known people that are famous and their children. They
Mhm.
got to try and branch out somewhere different. But sometimes they just end up going in the same place because it's the path of least resistance. You know what I mean?
I mean, there's some nepotism there, right? You have a
Yeah,
doorway.
absolutely,
Yes,
absolutely.
the framework's already set up for him.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's hard to avoid it really if you're in that situation. That's why I don't blame people that go into their family's profession because you have all that knowledge and all those connections already. It's hard, man. It's hard to say no to that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I'd have expectations too, though, right? Like if I were an
Yeah,
English teacher, my kid better get A's in
yeah,
English.
absolutely,
You know what I mean?
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
Right.
I certainly have certain expectations. Not that I want you to, I want to guide what you do, but on some
Yeah,
level, I'm hopeful.
I honestly would never want my children to follow in my footsteps because politics is hard, and it's uncaring and people are assholes, and that's just a business. I'm not even talking about the actual politicians, which is a whole other story.
It's just the business.
It's just a business, man. Business is hard, brother. It's people betray you like there's no tomorrow. And this is not even. I'm not even talking about the opposition. Fighting the opposition is another story altogether too. But it's a tough business. I wouldn't want my children to follow into that footsteps.
It's interesting that you say that because I don't have a political example, but I certainly have a fitting example. My wife and I,
Mm.
we've been married 25 years. We've known each other since
Mm.
we were 5.
Congrats.
And we have the type of relationship that we have is and this has been that way for as long as we've been together. We counsel each other. We certainly fill in the gaps in each other's lives where where one may be strong, the other one, we compensate in those regards, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
oftentimes my wife will come to me. My wife is in the world of high finance.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about my wife, which works, it's a positive and a negative.
Okay.
It works to her benefit, but it can also be very negative. And when it can be negative, and I'll explain in a second, she
Sure.
comes to me because she knows how I think and how I operate. So my wife is one of the most, if not the most genuine person that you can ever meet. And it's crazy because she came up in the project. She grew up in the project. She has a couple master's degrees. She's in finance. She's a VP in banking. But the thing is, she does not know how to be disingenuous. It's just not in her character. It never has been. So consequently, she wears her emotions on her sleeve. She'll never be fake to you. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, she's just a very genuine person. But because of that, she's not equipped to recognize shadiness
When somebody's coming at her. Yeah.
because she's not shady.
Right.
It's not something that she practices. She just won't recognize it. You understand what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
so when she got into, when she first got into finance and she got into a lot of the situations that she was getting, my wife is, Black woman who excels. Everything that she touches, she's going to if she plants an apple seed, the fruit it's going to be the best apples.
Right.
Whatever, any situation that she walks into, I used to tell her all the time, like, because she wasn't very self-confident. I used to be like, listen, like you graduated in every level of school, you graduated class rank 1. You know what I mean? Like from elementary school to high school to college, like she was 1, rank 1.
She's just an exceller. She's just an exceller.
Right. And so I said to her, every time you walk into a building, if you're brand new in the building, they just drafted Michael Jordan.
Right.
Literally, like that's always the case. And I tell her as much, like, listen, when you walk into that building, every single, I've seen it so many times that it's like a truth. I say to her, every time you go into a new situation, not only do you thrive or survive, you thrive, and you do so above and beyond everyone else. She's always promoted the fastest. She's always, and within 6 months, people recognize, like, we have a diamond, not even in the rough, we just have a diamond. But so she's been in these situations. She's a Black woman working in a predominantly white male, field.
Oh,
Which
I
is the
know.
case.
I know. Yeah.
It's very, very, very lopsided, right? And
Yeah.
so I told her, I said, you need to be careful. And she's
Yeah.
like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, you are a threat. What do you mean I'm a threat? You're brilliant. Like, you're brilliant. And not only that, like, you're no nonsense, you're diligent, you're astute, you're on top of what you do. What you normally do when you walk into a situation is you vastly improve the situation that you're in every time without fail. And these are things that she didn't recognize, but I recognize because this is my wife. We've been together
Absolutely
25 years. And I'm like, every time.
You were no dummy. You jumped on that because
Right.
she was adding to your life too.
Right. And and I told her, I'm like, every single time, there's never been a situation, especially work related, where you haven't walked into that situation and it's vastly better. And I said, and because of that, you need to be on your guard, and you need to be cognizant of situations where people are trying to work against you because you are a threat. And she didn't understand. And I remember she came home to me one day and she said, she was in a meeting and a guy said in the meeting, and she was like, Ish, I felt so good about it. And I was like, you need to be careful. He said in a meeting, this was his question to one of the supervisors: what do I need to do to make myself stand out like Belinda, who is my wife, right?
Yeah.
And she came home and she was like, yeah. And I said, Belinda, I said, you understand what he was really saying, right? And she's like, no. And I'm like, he just pretty much told you he's threatened by you.
Yeah.
Like, he pretty much said it. You know what I mean?
That's
He
no
didn't
friend.
say,
That's no
what
friend.
do I need to do to do my job better, or what should I? He specifically said, what do I need to do to make myself stand out like Belinda? And I said to her, and she's like, wow, I didn't even see it that way. And I said, why would you? Right? Like, why would you see it that way? You don't expect, you don't know how to be shady. It's not in you. It's not your character, which I learned is very much to her advantage, because in situations where people would try to work against her, her work, her quality of work, her history, you know what I mean? The history of the character that she's shown in the capacity to do her job resoundingly speaks for her. Like, it goes above and beyond what she could actually say. You understand what I'm saying? So, because there's been several situations, and I'm like, yo, she'll come home and she'll be like, Ish, what does this look like? And there's several situations where people just try to undermine, or people have let her, do work and take credit for it, and she'll be like, what do I do? And I'll say to her, just continue to do what you do. And she's like, yeah, but they're going to get credit. And I said, listen, because you're so good at what you do, if somebody for some reason piggybacks off of you and gets credit, they're going to have to live up to that. Mm-hmm. And if they had to use you to get that credit, it means that they can't do it themselves. You can. They're not going to be able to live up to that when required to stand on their own 2 feet.
Sure.
Right? They're not going to provide an example as good as the example they provided when they came to you. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm sorry, Mike, go on.
That lack of knowledge of shadiness can be an advantage.
Yes.
You don't have to expend that energy wondering who's trying to like screw you over.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Long as you handle your business, and that's what I always tell her. I'm like, listen, everything that you do is always forthright and above board. That is your strength. Stand on that.
Exactly.
Stand on that. But yeah, I was just, I get it, because, my wife is in one of those situations, and I told her, I said, you don't get it, but in that world, that high finance world, everybody is looking to climb up a ladder, and the rungs are people. The rungs on that ladder are people.
And the only way to get up is to drag somebody else down, usually.
Yeah, to step on somebody.
Yeah.
There's another way. It's called due diligence, right?
Absolutely.
And being forthright and above board and doing excellent work.
It's funny you say that, because in my line of work, I was always known as the honest person that worked really hard. I wasn't a guy who stabbed you in the back the minute you turned your back. I was the guy who worked twice as hard as anybody else in the campaign, including my young 20-somethings right out of college.
And you said the key thing: work twice as hard.
Well, you have to. I look, man. I don't know how much you know about Cubans, but Cubans came here with nothing, absolutely nothing. 2 suitcases and a bunch of angry KKK guys at the airport. This is a true story, and when people talk about immigrants and stuff like that, they really don't know how the anger comes from things they don't understand. And I know that. I'm totally aware of that. But most of people's immigrant experience is, oh, thank you for the chance, not thank you for all this free stuff. And I've always tried to fight that perception really hard, because I don't think it's fair, and it's not relevant to our situation. So
we're going to get into that. I hope. I don't want to do it on this block because time. On the very next block, if you got some time, I want to get into that. There's some things that I want to talk about when it comes to immigrants and immigration. You're a newer guest, and we had a discussion that kind of covered this, but I think you could bring a perspective that we didn't have at the time, as a product of immigration. You understand what I'm saying? This is
absolutely.
So something I want to get into, but I would like for you to talk about your show.
Oh, yeah. So Super Geeks was started by a guy who unfortunately passed right before COVID. He was not that healthy, but George was a really sweet guy who did a lot of nice. He was a super nice guy. I can't say that enough. But George was like homeless twice. He still did the show from like shelters and things. It was amazing. He was a guy that wouldn't stop. And so he put together basically people he ran into online and in real life. And so when he passed, the show continued, but we had to take some time to reevaluate what we were doing, because a lot of the people were upset, like physically upset that George had passed. Mm-hmm. So, but the show basically covers like media and news. Like right now we're covering. Have you guys heard of the show called Lower Decks?
Yeah, I just watched the first episode. Yeah,
wasn't it good?
Mm-hmm.
It was good. Yeah. It was funny. It's by the guy who does Rick and Morty.
Oh, okay.
One of the guys anyway.
Yeah.
And so we're covering Lower Decks now every week. And when Discovery pops back up, we'll be covering that as well. And other shows, basically. And
are you covering only the actual Star Trek episodes, or also some of the adjacent shows that are not Star Trek, but like Star Trek,
Picard?
Oh yeah, Picard. Yes, absolutely.
Well, Picard's an actual Star Trek show, but there are also other ones like the one from the guy who does Family Guy. Has one.
Oh yeah, they talk a lot about that. I don't really like that show myself, because I think it's too much like the Next Generation. Okay. I saw the first 3 episodes and I was like, this is not. I
couldn't get into it either.
I couldn't get the humor.
Even though it's humor. Oh, you don't. Okay, you didn't.
Humor is hard for me, to be completely honest with you, because I deal with serious subjects all the time. So it's hard for me to. Sometimes when people tell me a joke, I'm just like.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing, though, because I couldn't get into it either, and for similar reasons. But one of the things that I am aware of, or that I understand to be true with the show, is that it's the general consensus is that from a hardcore sci-fi perspective, it's a great show.
I've heard the same.
Yeah.
I've heard some bad news for the show though. The show lead and his new wife that got married on the show are now divorcing. So I'm expecting things to get a little rougher in the third season.
You mean the actors?
Yeah, the actors themselves. Seth MacFarlane. Seth MacFarlane and that girl. I can't remember her name now.
Wait, the woman who plays his wife is actually his wife?
I think so. I believe so.
Oh.
I believe that's the one that they're talking about. But
well, that's always trouble.
Man, never date at work, man. Never date.
That probably was a bad idea.
Yeah. That was a completely foolish idea on his part.
It sounds like his real life is mirroring what happens to the characters on the show.
Absolutely. So get ready for more tacky ex-wife jokes, basically. But so yeah, we cover basically, like, if it's sci-fi, we probably cover it. Fantasy, that sort of thing. Comic books also, like comic book movies are their favorite. Although me and George were pretty much the comic book guys. And so when he passed, I'm kind of teaching them a little bit about comic book lore, basically.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
you said something today on Comic Sense, or maybe yesterday, that I strike you as a Claremont type of guy, which I thought was interesting because I currently have 12 books at CGC being signed by Chris Claremont.
That's awesome. I wish I had the same pleasure of meeting him or getting him to sign some of my books. But I love Claremont. I think he was a futurist feminist at a time when comic books were just like devoid of interesting stories. And he did stuff with the X-Men that really broke ground for a lot of what we consider modern comics.
I think he was. I think it's fair to say, outside of Stan Lee creating the X-Men, he's literally the father of what we know. What we know the X. I mean, it's arguable, but it's hard to argue that his run on X-Men made the X-Men the most popular comic book of all time. Like
Absolutely.
It was just the most popular. And 17 years, like no other writer has that much tenure on a single comic book.
And still, though, Peter David came close. He was on the Hulk for 10 years, and that was a great run. That was a real great run. He took the Hulk into places that I never. Again, very modern, very much like they present the Hulk in the movies. Kind of a modern dual character that is fighting himself most of the time. That was perfected under Peter David.
Yeah, Peter David he wrote some definitive Hulk stuff.
He's a good writer. He's just a good writer. And if he would have been put on Power Pack would have still been on today.
You
Were
think?
you a fan of the Lou Ferrigno?
No. What's his name? He
David
passed
Banner?
recently. Yeah, David Banner. Yeah.
The guy who played him.
Yeah, I'm not a real big fan because it never got real deep. It was just kind of like a werewolf story.
I'm with you on that.
You know what I mean? It was a monster that was out of control and didn't have anything, and the guy was just basically wandering from place to place, situation to situation.
I'm with you on that. I wasn't the biggest fan.
What was that?
I'm gonna look it up.
Not Lou Ferrigno. You're talking about the guy who played David Banner.
Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that show either. I mean, from as a kid when it came on, it was always cool to see, that same cut scene with the Hulk, chest heaving, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But
Bill Bixby. Yeah, I just found it.
It's like you waited 40 minutes to get like 5 minutes of the Hulk.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was an exercise in patience, that's for sure.
I think the Spider-Man show was better.
I tell you the truth, the thing I'm known for on that show is that I push hard sci-fi, like books and things like that. And I love the fact that Villanova is making a Dune movie again. That's my favorite book of all time, and my favorite story of
Which book?
everything. Dune.
Listen, stop right now, dude. Stop,
Okay, all right.
stop. Dune. Listen, I am such a Dune fanatic.
Yes,
A
that is awesome.
Mike, remember we had a show on this where I was recommending this book to Joe, like the entire series. The only book that I think is lacking in the entire series that I'm highly critical of is Chapter House.
Chapter House is a little weaker.
Yeah, to me it doesn't really stick the landing. But listen, Dune. That's why I said stop, because you're speaking my language. Like you are speaking my language. Like
you got to remember, sir, you're married. You can't have that.
Yeah, I know. Chani is my mistress.
That's right. She was awesome, man. She's the best. One of the best characters in that series.
Yeah, and I think Shiana's another one of my mistresses.
People are going to go crazy. People, when the new movie comes out, it's going to be so well done, in my opinion, because the director is amazing, and he's one of the producers of Villanova. I forget his first name. Hold on,
David.
I think David is it?
Anything that he's known for doing
So Raul, do you think I'm wrong for this? That I feel like, like Dune is it's a series that's been out for a long time, right? And there's like this hardcore fan base of which I happen to be a member. So I kind of feel like there's some sort of proprietary type feelings that I have where like I want this movie to be a hit and I want it to be successful, right?
Right.
But like I feel like there are going to be a lot of fans of the movie if it's, given that Lord of the Rings treatment, like they're saying, right? Who probably never read the series and, never cared
and that's
right?
fine. That's fine.
It is, but I feel like, man.
But they're missing half of it, basically. Because no matter how good the movie's going to be, the book is just outstanding. It reads like poetry, and it's so epic in scale. It makes Star Wars look small and weak.
In his understanding of history.
Yes,
and how he just weaves it in. And listen, man,
because it's like a combination of a Christ story, like a Messiah story, with like Lawrence of Arabia kind of feeling.
Right. You get like the not the Bene Gesserit, but
the Fremen.
What two religions did he cross? He crossed Judaism and Islam. Right, yeah. Judaism and Islam. What were they called, though? They were called the something.
Oh, they were called the Weirding Way or something.
No, that was the Bene Gesserit. But
that's the Bene Gesserit.
Because if you remember the Ixtians or the Talaxians, were like they subscribed to this hybrid Judaism that was like hybridized between Islam and Judaism. It was called the something Sunnis.
Oh yeah, I forgot now. Hold on, let me look it up while we're talking. But
I know Sunni was one of the words.
Let's see.
They were like this hybridized Islam Judaic type religion.
The Fremen are Zen Sunni adherents.
Yes, Zen Sunni. Yes.
And many of Herbert's epigraphs are Zen spirited. So it's a kind of it's actually forms concepts borrowed from Zen Buddhism.
Right.
And that's gonna go like hotcakes everywhere, all over the world.
Yeah.
And what is it?
Yeah.
Is there
and Saint Alia of the Knife is my girl.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
Are there examples of folks spitting and crying? And this universe is like shedding water or something. Is that a thing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you about.
That's absolutely it.
Remember I told you?
Okay.
Because when somebody dies, they don't bury them. They call it reclaiming the water. The Fremen are basically desert people who live on the edge of the knife, and they can't allow any water to go on harvest. And so people are basically liquefied as when they die.
So
So
when you think Fremen, think any marginalized, oppressed group.
absolutely.
Hence the term Fremen, right? So this group has learned to live. We have a planet called Arrakis, right?
Yeah.
And this particular group has learned to live in the harshest conditions on this planet as oppressed people. And only affluent people have access to water.
Right.
Water is very hard to come by. So they wear these things called still suits, which converts your sweat into water. It converts your urine into water, and have these little straws that they can pull out, at the neck and drink from.
Yeah.
So
there
that
are
they
examples of people. So when you spit, that's like what, like a sign of respect or
Disrespect.
deference or something?
Complete
Yes.
disrespect.
Oh, it's
Yes.
disrespect when you spit.
You're wasting water.
You're wasting water.
Okay.
The whole thing. Imagine the story. Imagine that water was oil in our world.
Yeah.
And so there's actually two things that are like oil.
I was going to say
There's
spice.
The spice, which is more relevant, but the spice is also a drug. So there's a lot of drug mystique written around the spice, but water itself
Spice
is like
must flow.
the flows. So yeah. It's
And
going to
so
be
what about-
amazing. When that movie comes out, you're going to see people dressing like Fremen and everyday. It's going to become part of. It's going to be like Game of Thrones. You know how everybody was talking about it? Normal people that have nothing to do with the geek culture.
Yeah.
I saw it on my morning news, and my morning news couldn't be any more straight-laced and boring. And they were still talking about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Listen, you're going to see a lot of people wanting to be Mentats.
Oh yeah.
You're going to see a lot of people wanting to be Fremen. Like you'll probably see marketing like blue-eyed contact lenses.
Absolutely.
Like that'll probably like be a hot item. Blue-eyed contact lenses.
Over at the Comic Cons, people are going to be dressing in still suits. I'm already seeing it.
People are going to start calling computers thinking machines.
That's
like
right.
All this is going to happen, right? It's going to happen.
What about crying? What's the deal?
Crying is a definite sign of weakness, because you're losing water and you're exposing yourself to the enemy, which the Fremen view all basically New Worlders, the people that are coming off from the because they travel vast distances in this universe, but it's because of the spice. The spice itself alters people's perceptions in a way that they are able to teleport people over long distances.
Sure.
Well, it's not really teleportation. So
it's not really.
Here's how
go
it
ahead.
works.
Go ahead.
So consider the spice like oil, right? But how it works is, because this empire it's several planets in this empire, and it's obviously humans left Earth and populated the universe. So in order for people to travel, you need what is called the Spacing Guild, and the Spacing Guild employs an alien species known as, or not necessarily alien, but a genetically evolved species from humans called navigators. And the only way that the navigators the only way you can navigate through space is the navigators have to ingest spice. And by ingesting spice, they become prescient or able to see into the time stream so that they can avoid accidents. Okay. So spice works like oil, but it's not really like actual oil that fuels a vessel. They need the navigators in order to ingest this spice, in order to be able to navigate these ships and guide these ships, because they can see into the time stream as long as they ingest spice.
And they're a powerful force in the universe, like you can imagine.
It's a monopoly.
It's a monopoly, complete monopoly.
Okay.
In fact, most of the universe is filled with monopolies, with certain people in very powerful positions.
Which is why the Fremen are oppressed, because the planet that the spice comes from is called Arrakis, which is the Fremen home planet. They're the original people on this planet. And because they have the resource, think of South Africa and diamonds, right? Because they have the resource, their planet is exploited for this resource, and by virtue of that, they are oppressed.
Or hell, you could even Sudan and oil. That's another one.
Right.
That's interesting. I either made something up or thought of another universe. In my mind, there was the universe where spitting is like a sign of respect and what would you call it? Almost like
Submission.
Well, like almost like you're giving something up, like you're like almost like not generosity, but like what's it called when you give something up for someone else? It's like a sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Okay.
Shedding tears in Dune is a sign of weakness and also a sign of great respect.
Yeah.
Oh, and a sign of great respect. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot. There is points in the novels where people are crying because the main character has passed or a main character in their lives have passed, and they're crying, and it's not viewed as a weakness. It's viewed as a sign of great respect.
I'm giving up something very valuable. It's not
That's
just
right.
crying, right? I'm giving up a valuable resource in honor to you.
Oh, I see.
Because it's water.
Yeah.
Oh, we're almost out of time again.
Yep, we're down to 2 minutes, a little over 2 minutes.
Oh, that was a good segment, though.
Yeah, we definitely got to have a Dune conversation.
Oh,
Dune
definitely.
is so awesome. Mike, if you have an opportunity to read it, you should read
it before you see
series.
the movie. Yeah, read at least Dune itself, the first book. It's not that long.
How many books
I have a copy here.
6.
There's like 9? No, 6.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm getting confused because the son continued to write for the universe.
Okay,
right. There's 6 core books, and then he died. Right. So the last book, the son found the manuscript and finished the last book, and then went on to expound upon the core books.
And the first book is the one that you're recommending.
Dune itself. Yeah.
Dune.
Dune. Dune.
Yeah.
Dune, Children of Dune, Dune Messiah.
Children of Dune reads like a poetry. I've always thought. It's so beautiful.
Have they only made a movie out of the first one?
Yes.
The first one
with David Lynch. Well, they made a series. They made a series from
Sci-Fi Channel did a series.
And the second one they did was actually better because it was unclaimed territory, and they did it very, very well, I think. And it was around the time of the. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, you go on. You go.
Oh no, I was saying it was around the time of the invasion of Iraq, and so the themes fit very well in Children of Dune.
And if you want to see a young, non-famous James McAvoy, certainly watch Children of Dune.
When did they make a series?
It's a 2-movie
2000.
2 movies, you mean?
Oh, the movies. There was a movie in 1984, which
I recommend.
Which I recommend too. But David Lynch doesn't like it.
Did you say 2 movie series, or there's an actual series?
Okay. So this is what happened. In 1984, they did a movie.
Yeah.
Right, and then Sci-Fi Channel did a series that is like, if you buy it, it's like 3 discs, but it's actually the first movie. Right, so it played over the course of like 3 nights, an hour and a half each.
Oh, that's not a good. Okay, that's not a good.
And then it's good. It's good. Okay. And then they did